Well, my style has been, and I think the style is sometimes we're not even conscious of a style you have. Well, you really can't take your work home if you're academic. You can't if you're a therapist. You're not going to take your clients home. You can take your books home, and you pretty much have to take grading home. So I think that's partly the work itself, and then the fact that the pace has increased over the years. When I came to Seattle University in 1976, it was relatively leisurely. And so that period is long gone, where you kind of had leisure time and you didn't have to chisel it out desperately to have it. I think getting organized has been a problem for me. And I've gotten better at it than I did at the beginning. So to be more efficient, you have to be organized.
I do think organization is a huge part of this. I don't think it's sufficient, but it certainly is a necessary part, especially because we're in a world that's suffused with social media and all sorts of distractions, right? So I think one way of coping with all of that is to be organized. Another is to be quite focused and to almost compartmentalize. I've been very successful at doing that, actually. Yeah. And so when I'm focused on work, that's pretty much all I focus on. If I'm focused on writing something, I don't box myself into a windowless room that I know other people have tried doing to provide that focus, but I do try to minimize any other commitments, any other sorts of distractions, and I get into a zone. I think I've been driven, and that's held me in good stead in many ways. I think there's a danger to that, and fortunately I think I've averted the worst dangers of being so driven by, just one thing. And I think that's been averted partly because I've had sort of family care that I've had to really pay attention to in addition to some of the academic responsibilities and goals that I've had.
When I am productive in getting things done, my life is in balance. And that's kind of my regular goal, is to maintain a balanced life between work and recreation, family, exercise, spirituality, all the different pieces. And there have been times when I've been able to do that for maybe 2-3 weeks at a time. And during those periods, I find I'm much more productive. And then something happens and kind of throws it out of balance a little bit. And I often don't realize for a week that I'm out of balance. And then I realize it. And then I have to work to try to get back in balance, and the cycle starts again.
I think that I looked at everything as, can it do double duty? If you develop something for your class, is there a way you can parlay that into some kind of little article or some kind of something that you would communicate to the outside world, right? I mean, that's what publication is a communication with other people. And, if you're going to spend your time doing something, you want to make sure it counts for as many things as you can make it count for.
So the two most challenging for me have probably been the clinical practice, because it's very, very time consuming. I love it, but it is time consuming, pulls me out of the office, pulls me out of my role, and scholarship. And scholarship has been a challenge. When you're in an academic educator administrative role, oftentimes program grants fall on your plate. So if I had the choice given to me to submit my own research grant or a program grant that would bring millions into the university, I often had to choose, or did choose, the program grant. And that was a choice that I freely made. So my research suffered a bit because of that, but I was productive in another realm. And I found that partnering with faculty was a win-win for me and for them. If they had a research project that they were working on, if I could help in any way, if I could partner, co-PI, that often worked out very well.
Research, and particularly on the research side, of having co-authors has been really helpful for that, of also sort of having a rhythm where you just can't push it off forever. The co-authors are awaiting my iteration and my contribution so they can take their part and move the paper, move the project forward.
I've always tried to seek out allies to work with. And so almost all my publications are co-authored, and the presentations I do at conferences are almost always with other people. And that gives an opportunity for a lot of collaborative work, both with colleagues at Seattle U and a lot of people at other universities. Part of it is find your highest ideal and your highest goal, I believe, and then shoot for that first. And so for me, my highest goal is creating this more productive and successful education system. And so I always try to relate what I'm doing back to achieving that goal. And so that's one question I'm always asking myself when an opportunity comes up is, how does it relate to this overarching goal that I have? And I think I've been pretty consistent with that, although my challenge is that I find too many things that relate to it and I say yes to them. And so I have a tendency to overcommit.
I'm not very good at saying no. I do try to decide if it fits with my priorities. I've been getting, the last 10 years, I've had many more opportunities to do things and many more people call upon me to do things. And so I've tried to ramp up my criteria level for what I say yes to. It's probably silly in a way. I mean, I watched Jenny, who had a child. She goes, I just can't do this. I mean, I have got to be home taking care of this child. And I'm like, God, did I ever think that? But but mine, you know, so it just made me realize, okay, I need to be thinking about these things more. I need to, you know, so then I started using her to say, okay, should I really do this? Let's think about this. Help me think this through. What are the good parts? What are the bad parts? It's just useful to have somebody who's actually going to give you honest feedback. My husband would always say no. No, it's a bad idea. That's just the standard answer. I don't need to ask him anymore. It would be no. The answer is no, Vicky. No, don't do anything else. No.
The one thing that has been helpful to me in sort of coping with the pace is that I have a sense of humor. And part of being Danish, you're irreverent about everything. You make fun of everything, and that's including yourself. And I think for me that's been a saving grace. The other challenges have been good ones in the sense that teaching a lot of different courses and doing research and developing a graduate program required growth, expansion, developing new skills, working with colleagues. So that's been good. It's been like going to the gym and you ache for a couple hours, and over time you're able to do a little more than you were at the beginning. So I feel good about that. And also my own inclination to work too much, kind of push myself to the point of burnout. So sabbaticals are good. And having a summer for some leisure is almost a matter of life and death sometimes.
My first sabbatical was in 2000, 2001. And that was the end of the sort of the dot-com era. And through some of our leadership programs, I had met several folks from Boeing. So I worked at Boeing for the year in supply chain, in the role that I'm doing research in and came to teach in. So that was fantastic, actually, from a professional development standpoint. But I learned that the flexibility, the time flexibility of academia is something that I was undervaluing. So I don't mind working hard, but I just don't want to do it between 8 and 5 every single day. So the structure of what we do allowed, I had a young family at the time, and so you could go do the family things when it was necessary, as long as there wasn't class, and then work after that or before. So that's fit my style very well, is to work every day if I need to, but when I want to, not when the clock says I have to be working.
Big upside is the freedom to be able to think and create in a manner that very few people outside of the academy have. The downside is that it's quite solitary. It's actually when you're sitting there in front of your computer and you're trying to either come up with a syllabus or with a book chapter outline, either of those activities require just sort of being in your own place and being in your own space and not really communicating with others.
Lately, I'm involved. I'm on so many committees and various task forces and things that it's the opposite of being isolated. It's almost too much interaction. But there have been years in the past that have felt isolated.
But I think what has sustained me is that when I work at home, I'm working on things that matter to me, that are personally significant as well as professionally. And there's certain things I would not cut back on, no matter how busy I was, tennis being one of them, and at least some minimal contact with my friends. And for the last number of years, living close enough to the university, I could walk from school to home and home to school about 20, 25 minutes. And that gave me both some distance and some exercises and reminding myself there's a bigger world out there than academia.